new at Power Diary. This is our mid-2024 update. So my name is Damien Adler. I am one of the co-founders here at Power Diary and head of customer success. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, very brief background: I'm a registered psychologist. Previously had grown a private psychology practice with my wife, and from that and seeing the needs of practitioners, Power Diary grew from that, and identifying the things that people need to grow health practices. That was many years ago, and Power Diary sort of grew from that point. Now, joining me today we have Claire. Claire, I'll let you introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining. I'm Claire. I'm a product owner currently at Power Diary, but I have 10 years experience with Power Diary. So over that journey, I started out in a customer role, helping out with customer questions and giving demos of the product. From there, I grew into a data import role where I imported data from people moving over to Power Diary, which gave me a really good understanding of how databases work, and really enjoyed that. And then more recently, I've come over to the product side, which really ties in all of the experience I've had in those different parts of Power Diary, and I'm really enjoying it. So my role here is really about listening to feedback from all of our users and developing that into awesome products that we're going to go through in today's presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And you really sort of translate the requests that come in, and then decide with the team about what sort of gets built, and then you spec it all out, and then work with the engineering teams to get it in. So the things that we're going to talk about today are things that you've been involved in from conceptualization through to delivery. So you are the perfect person to have on and to walk us through a lot of these new features. Okay, so what we'll cover today is a bunch of things: the calendar enhancements, permission changes, statement invoicing, US insurance claiming, Stripe multi-merchant, and a whole bunch of other things about some UI updates. We're going to talk very briefly at the end about tease the AI features that we have coming. So let's just dive straight into it and have a look at what we have here. So to start with, we have calendar filtering. And what can you tell us about this, Claire? How does this work, and why? What were people looking for here? What are we aiming to achieve?
Yeah, so our calendar filtering is an awesome tool to give you an overview of. I kind of look at it like what work you need to do in a way.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at your calendar, you might be wondering, have I written notes for all of my sessions today? Have I invoiced everybody today? Who's paid? Have I got the right flags assigned? So calendar filtering answers those questions for you. Instead of having to look through every appointment, you can use this calendar filter tool to filter out basically the questions you want answered. So who haven't I written a note for example, or who haven't I invoiced? Set those filters. When you apply it, it then actually shows you the appointments that match those filters. So really gives you a look at what work you need to do or what work you have done. So
very good.
We can hop in and I can
exactly.
I can give a demo of this one.
Yeah, let's do that. And if you take control of the screen, that's great.
Perfect. Just give me a moment and find my right screen for you. All right. So I've just set up an example here of some appointments with different criteria. So our calendar filters can be found in the top right-hand corner of your calendar here. So when we press on this little filter button, we get the filtering options. So at this stage, we have 3 different sections to filter by, or 3 different criteria. So that includes notes, and we can look by a note status. So appointments where there's no note written, where we have a note in draft status, or a note in completed status. We also have our invoices, so we can again look at appointments that don't have a note, appointments that have an don't have an invoice, I should say, appointments that have an unpaid invoice, and then those are the paid invoice. And then finally, with the appointment flags, these ones are customizable in your account. So what you'll see here will reflect what you've set up in your account for appointment flags. And these you can select any number of those. So we can select a combination out of these 3 different sections. So for example, I might want to see all appointments in the current view that may have a completed note, but let's say I haven't invoiced yet. So I just check what I want to look at. And also worth noting that if we're working between sections. So if we're looking at notes and invoices, the filtering here works as an or, so it's going, sorry, as an and, I should say. So here we're going to look at where it's got a completed note and no invoice. But if I were to check multiple ones within one section, so let's say notes, it's going to here look at where it's got a draft status or completed status note and no invoice. Okay, so
that makes sense.
Cool. Once I've selected them and click apply, we'll see that it actually sets the translucency to those appointments that don't match. So these are not visible to us, but if there are matching appointments, if I just update my criteria, I choose one that matches. There we go. So in this case, we have one matching appointment. We can see that that's fully transparent. So it helps us to see which ones we need to pay attention to. Yeah. And we've also got a little notification in badge on this filter button. So that just shows us as well the number of appointments that match our filtering criteria.
Yeah.
In this case, it's just one.
And yeah, what's great about this, I think, too, is the like the feedback that we were getting is that, let's say you want to see if everyone had been invoiced. People previously were having to click on each appointment and sort of check the status, like have they all been invoiced, have they all been paid, you know, and so they'd be clicking through, you know, and that can be pretty tedious. And so the idea, or the same with notes, so they do a note, didn't I, what status is it up to? And the same for people like practice managers and administrators, practice owners, same thing, right? They were sort of like trying to check on what's happened during the day, and they were finding that they have to do it very manually. So this way it's sort of like, okay, if all notes been done from today or from last, you know, week or whatever it might be, and by adding that filter straight away, it stands out like, hey, this is what's outstanding, or this person never got invoiced, which
exactly
is important.
It is, and people that work out of their calendars, you know, you need to, you have a good idea of your appointments. You don't want to have to hop into different reports to see that, so it really reconciles all that power into that one page. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's great. All right, I will. Let's jump into the next, which is sort of viewing multiple time zones in the calendar, and I think you're going to demonstrate this one as well.
Yep, I can hop back in.
Yeah, great.
We'll just need to stop the presentation. I'll share my screen again. All right, so what we are looking at here is the ability for users to set up their own time zone and view that in the calendar alongside the business default time zone. So as you'll all know, in our calendar or in the account, we have a single business default time zone, and that's the time zone that applies throughout the account. But we do have users that are working in different time zones, and there was a need for them to be able to look at appointments or book appointments and to be able to convert that business time zone to their own time quite easily. So as you can see here on the left-hand side of the calendar, we have two different time zones showing here. So I've enabled this feature in which I have set up, so we've got our business time zone of UTC plus 10 as an example, and I've set up my own time zone as UTC plus 8. So we can see that it's comparing the two different time zones for me here. And although the appointments remain in the business default time zone, I can easily see which time the appointment is in my own time zone. So that takes a bit of that mental math out and helps a bit with comparing, against the different times in the calendar.
And this has sort of become increasingly important, I think, with the continued rise of telehealth, and there's more likelihood of having practitioners that are working in different time zones and may not be physically co-located in, the practice premises. And that's one of the sort of drivers behind this has been, exactly that people needed to be able to see. And they're doing a lot of mental math. So it's sort of like, oh, okay, I've got a client at 12 o'clock, but what's that in my time zone? And now that's a lot easier. And then people can set this up right. They can go into their user settings and they can add this time zone in for their own local.
Your user profile, you access that in the top right hand corner, and you click on user profile, and here you can choose to enable your additional time zone and choose the time zone you'd like to see. And so once you have chosen, it'll just show for you when you're logged in. It doesn't affect anyone else in the account. So feel free to choose whatever works for you.
And that means too, if you've got practitioners in multiple time zones, they all set it to their own. So it's not like you say, it's not going to apply it across, and so it's very, very flexible. Okay, location type icons and some changes here. What can you tell us about how this works and what it does?
Yeah, so as you said, with the rise of telehealth appointments and people being across different time zones, the same sort of need arose here to have different modalities of appointments as really, it's increased in popularity recently. So what we've built here is the option to link to each location, the location type, which is it's basically like the modality of the appointment. So you have the option of choosing in person, which is the default, but you can also choose telehealth video call or phone. Now, when you choose telehealth video call and you book an appointment in that location, you'll see a little video icon that we can see in the example image here next to the client's name. And same for phone. If you select phone as the location type and you book an appointment into that location, you see a little phone icon there. So this helps you when you're looking at your calendar. You can see like what you need to set up or prepare for your upcoming appointments, and gives an indication of how they will be delivered.
And again, it stops people needing to kind of click in and try and each appointment to see what their day looks like or what modality it's going to be in. So again,
yeah, exactly.
Nice and visual.
Yeah,
very good. Okay, now monthly calendar view. This is a great one. So how does this work, and what's the driver here behind this?
Yeah, so our monthly calendar view is accessible in the calendar. So when we're looking at the different options of viewing, we previously just had day, Monday to Friday, and week. We have built the monthly calendar view due to hot demand. So we had a lot of people that were wanting to be able to look more globally at their availability, rather than seeing it sort of week to week, but to be able to look for spots where they may be able to book appointments where they're not as fully booked, or to sort of figure out holidays, for example. It gives a much better overview, like zoomed out of what your booking capacity is. And so when we're in this monthly calendar view, we can still interact with appointments. You can still click on them, edit them, view them. You can even book in your appointments. You just need to set the start and end time.
Yeah, perfect. And you'll see at the moment we have this set in private mode. That's just so that we're sort of focusing your attention on the way that the monthly view works. But of course, that's just an option that's being turned on in this screenshot. So monthly view, when you don't have privacy mode on, it will show all the normal details that you'll see, or you'll see the name and whatnot of the appointment. So we've just done that for effect, so that we're focusing on that, but it's not; those two things are not linked directly.
Yeah,
very good. Now this one we had a lot of requests for this, didn't we, over some time? And it's been great since we've had it out. There's been lots of great feedback that allowing people that bird's eye view of what a month looks like, and like you say, great for lots of things. Okay, now we have some the first of a number really, but of user access levels and changes that we've been rolling out here. So what can you tell us about what is happening with user access levels?
So as you say, we've put a lot of focus on our user permissions. It's still currently work in progress, which we'll talk about at the end of this presentation. There's still some things coming there, but we're going to look at in the next few slides some changes that we've already implemented with our user permissions. So this first one here is looking at user access levels. So there's a bit of information here, so I'm going to hop into it. Basically, what this is aiming to achieve is to allow a user that has a default practitioner profile assigned to not automatically get access to the clinical records for those clients. Now, what that means is a user profile, as we're looking at on this screen, it can either have a default practitioner profile chosen, which typically you would do if they're the practitioner themselves. You would associate them with their practitioner profile, but there can be some cases where this need arose from, where you may have like a receptionist or a non-practitioner employee that's needing access to that practitioner's calendar. Let's say they only access that calendar and not all calendars in the account. And so they naturally would need to have access to that practitioner as their default practitioner profile. Now, the way that this association previously worked is that if they were selected, if they had a default practitioner profile, it would automatically give them access to the clinical records of any clients that had that practitioner listed as their primary practitioner. Now, this worked well if you are the practitioner of that client. However, if you're not, if you are working in bookkeeping or reception, you don't need to see that information. So this access level overrides that default behavior, so that if you set it to an administrative access level, you can still see the calendar for that practitioner. You can access the client profiles if you don't have access to all. However, you won't see the clinical information. That's everything under the records menu in the client profile. You won't have access to that. Now, there is a clause there. If the user does have access to all clients' notes, all clients' forms and correspondence, then they would see it for all clients, including these ones. But this is in the case that they don't have access to all, that we're not granting it here in this particular use case.
Yeah, and this that's a good explanation. And so I think the essentially the way it used to work is that it would assume that any user that had this sort of default practitioner attached was actually a practitioner, really, wasn't it? It was sort of assumed that
Exactly,
that's what yeah, and then and give that like very high level of access then, because it assumes the practitioner. And so this allows that to be, to sort of dial that down and say, no, this person does need to be attached to this calendar, but actually they're an admin person, and that's great. So
yeah,
good again,
exactly.
as part of that sort of evolving of, as we see different use cases, that pop up, that we can evolve to kind of match what people are needing, and to make sure that privacy considerations are always sort of at the top. Okay, we have another user setting here, and some changes to how this operates. Now, this is around availability. What can you tell us with this?
Yeah, so our user settings is a new introduction. Previously, when you were setting up your users, you would access an individual user and you would configure like what their permissions were in the account. As we were looking at all of the requests we got for our user permission updates, we did notice that there were some trends with requests that people had that they would want to configure for all of the users in their account. It's basically like a decision you want to make once, and hopefully, like in the ideal world, just set it up once instead of having to go into every user to set it up. So that's what we've built here with our user settings, is that we've just got one page where you can configure settings that apply to all of the users in your account, so that you don't have to go into every single user and turn this on. So we've built this page that you're looking at here under our user page. So here we have 3 different options. So the first one is to allow a user to access their default practitioner profile. So again, this one only applies if a user profile has a default practitioner profile selected. So in most use cases, this is going to be a practitioner themselves. And what we're allowing them to do here is, if they don't have access to the setup and configure Power Diary permission, which basically gives them access to everything under that settings menu, which is a pretty high level permission, previously they wouldn't be able to access their practitioner profile to change things like their mobile number, their email, and other details like that. Now, this setting that we've introduced here, if enabled, it allows everybody that has access to, or that has a default practitioner profile, it allows them to access their practitioner menu without needing to get access to the settings menu. So to do this, once it's enabled, the user would click in the top right-hand corner of Power Diary, and they'll see a new menu item called Practitioner Profile. When they click on that, they will see their practitioner profile as it appears in the settings menu, but they can't see other practitioners. And they can edit the profile, like the basic details of their profile, and they can also set up their calendar sync. So they can connect to Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar and set up those syncs without needing a third party or the administrator to set that up for them.
Mm.
Okay,
and so it takes the load off, doesn't it? Really, like with because before, like the people were sort of faced with a choice, like, do I give practitioners, essentially set up access, which often is over giving too much permission, because really, that's allowing them to access other profiles and things, or do I not? But then if they couldn't, if they didn't have that access, they weren't granting that set up access. It meant that any kind of changes like that, if they want to set up the calendar sync or make a small edit to something in there, then they would need to go back to the administrator of the account and say, hey, can you make this change? Can you hook up, my Google Cal sync or something? Which really unnecessarily, like essentially a limitation in our settings, was kind of creating more work for those account administrators, where this way we're sort of allowing measured or more incremental access to say, okay, you know what, our users, we're going to allow you to make these changes yourself, like in a practice. You might say, I'm happy for our practitioners to make a few of these edits without having to come back and see me as the account owner every time.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's good. Yeah.
So
very good.
Once that one is enabled, there's two other settings that you can also give access to. So once they have access to their practitioner profile, you can also choose to give them the ability to edit their own availability. So I think this one is a big need as well, for similar reasons that you just mentioned, but it allows practitioners, once they're in their practitioner profile, to add and edit their availability, meaning their available times for taking bookings. This can change quite a lot. So, needing to go back to an administrator to get this changed would have been a bit laborious. So, once this setting is configured, if you turn it on, it just means your practitioners can take care of setting up their own availability. So another big time saver for administrators here, not having to deal with that if they choose to enable it.
Yeah, and then people have to block out, because people used to, because they didn't have access to their availability settings, they would manually block out times in the calendar, and they would do it sort of more manually as a workaround. So at least this way, access is granted, they can get in there and say, hey, I'm away next week, and whatever, and just block it out.
Exactly. And then the final one is to edit their available services. So if you choose to configure this, again, when they're in their practitioner profile, they'll then see the menu item for available services. So here they can see the list of services and choose which ones they want to enable for online bookings. So this will just be if you're taking bookings through the client portal. It gives practitioners the ability to choose which service types they can and can't provide through the client portal. So they are all within that practitioner profile, and all mean that you don't need to give that practitioner access to the settings menu.
Yep, absolutely. And again, if you don't want to make any of these changes, you don't have to. So this is not, it's up to you, but if you do want to open up the system a bit for people to manage themselves, you can do it, but you don't have to. You have the same options you had before. We haven't taken any of that away. We've just given a little more flexibility.
Exactly,
okay. Now let's move on to assigning multiple practitioners to a client. This is cool.
Yeah, this one is very cool, and we've just released this one. So what we're doing here is we're again talking about accessing access to a client's profile. So previously we talked a little bit about the primary practitioner, and so that's a user that has a default practitioner profile selected, typically a practitioner, but maybe not always. So when they have a default practitioner profile selected. There's a lot of words going on here. It means that user can access the client's profile. So it's basically linking the client to that user or practitioner. So this would be, so another case of, another use case here is that we have the primary practitioner, which is like the main person or the main practitioner treating this client. But now we've introduced assigned practitioners. So this will be in a multi-practitioner practice, for example. I should say multidisciplinary potentially. We have different practitioners treating a client, and they all need to access that client's profile and potentially the clinical records. Previously, you would just have the primary practitioner that could access, and if users didn't have access to all clients, so like they didn't have people menu assigned, it meant that they couldn't access this client's profile. So assigned practitioners means that the users linked to all of these practitioners can now access this single client profile. And if their access level is set to clinical, it does mean that they can access the clinical records in this client's profile as well. Now, there are some additional benefits to this. So once you've assigned multiple practitioners to a client's profile, you can run a list under the people menu, clients and advanced search. You can look at all of the clients allocated to an assigned practitioner, so you can see their caseload. And also on the client portal, there's a setting where you can choose to restrict clients to basically only book with what would have previously been their primary practitioner. If that is turned on, it now extends to assigned practitioners. So the client has the choice to book with either their primary practitioner or their assigned practitioners, but not all practitioners in the account. So that really helps with the online booking process as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it makes a lot more, everything becomes a lot more granular, doesn't it? So, it's now down at an individual client level, being able to set who can book, who can interact with that client. And again, like you said, with the client portal, because they might need to ring in, they might need to book with their dietitian or with their psychologist or with their physio or whatever, but maybe they're seeing a few practitioners, and this kind of really kind of takes care of that very nicely. So it's great. And again, based on feedback. So thank you. We do listen, and we look at what people are asking for the most and what's impacting the most. And that's very important part of how we work out what to develop. Okay, let's jump into how we've split the new permissions from the people menu, and this is split it off a little bit, right? So there's a few advantages to that. I'll let you take us through.
Yeah, so as we're working on granularizing.
It's hard. So we should have thought that word through, before.
I should have practiced before.
It's a tongue twister.
We'll skip over that word, but as we work on that, part of that was looking at making sure that the permissions were specific to the access we were giving. And with our people menu previously, when that was granted, it would give people access to the waitlist. But also under our tools menu, it would give people access to edit note and form templates, which didn't quite make sense. So we've actually split both of these out to be separate permissions. So we've got now, aside from the people menu, we have access to the waitlist. So if you have people's menu turned on now, you won't automatically get access to the waitlist. So if you do turn that on, you can then separately choose to turn on access to the waitlist. And then also for editing note and form templates, you can choose independently to give access to that. And so it does mean that you may not want people to have access to search and access all clients, but you still want them to be able to edit note and form templates or view and edit the waitlist. So these ones have been split out so that you can determine the level of access you'd like your users to have.
That's great. Again, it makes it easier to control exactly what people can see and do in your account. Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, so let's look at clinical note viewing permissions. This is, again, was one we've had a lot of feedback around, and we have some new things here.
Yeah, this one is a really awesome feature that we have just released. So this one, again, sort of applies to people in potentially where there's like a client that has multiple sort of practitioners treating them, potentially a multidisciplinary practice. And so that single client profile may have notes written by many different practitioners. And we had a big need for people to just restrict practitioners to view the notes that only they had written, and maybe not see notes written by a different practitioner. So currently I have heard that people are handling this by having different client profiles, which is a lot to sort of juggle for a single client. But this feature means that you no longer have to do that for this reason. So this new permission, by default, we do grant you to have access to view all users' notes in the client profile, which is current behavior. So there won't be any change to your current behavior. But you choose to turn this permission off. So if you disable access to view all users' notes, what that means is when you're in a client profile that you have access to their notes already, you would only see notes that you have written. So that would be notes that you wrote while you were logged in as your user. And you would not see notes written by other users. So this means that people don't have to create, multiple client profiles just to sort of separate out the notes. You can now have one client profile, and the notes are just going to be visible by the user that wrote them. So a really powerful tool there. And we have just released this, and also the functionality I will just also mention is that we have set it up so that let's say if there's a practitioner treating a client that has written some notes and they're not visible to other users, you can choose that practitioner, or the master user can come in and choose to assign notes that have been written by that user to be visible by other users. So that may be if you're sort of relinquishing care of a particular client, you want to hand over your notes to another practitioner or user, you can choose to do that so that they're visible by them.
Yeah. And this is particularly, as you were saying, in multidisciplinary clinics, this is particularly important. if someone's saying, let's take the example of a dietitian and a psychologist, it was likely not appropriate for the dietitian to be able to view the notes written by the psychologist, so this, as you're saying, this now sort of allows that to be kind of again set to that. Whereas if you had two psychologists working with the client, or there was, working on different things, or you had a need for both to see, you can set it so it can do that. But the most common scenario is where you've got these different practitioners working, and you want to really control what each of them is sort of seeing. So, really, awesome feature. Great to kind of, that's only just gone out, hasn't it? So it's this is fairly recent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, now changing gears for a little bit, we're going to look at some US claiming functionality, and then we'll jump into some automation after this. So, US claiming functionality. This has been big. So let's go to a high level, and we won't get too bogged down into too much detail with this, but we'll just kind of go over a bit of an overview here of how this works for our US customers who have been asking for US insurance claiming. So I'll hand over to you to do a fly over here.
Yeah. So as you said, this is a big one. We've got a lot of different things that we've built in recently, and I'm going to sort of look at those briefly in the system. But just to list them out here, we've built our integration with the US claiming clearinghouse, which is really awesome for our US customers. We've got the ability to create a CMS 1500 form. So that generates it as a PDF. I'll show you that briefly, that you can then use to submit for insurance claims. We've expanded the fields that you can record for a client's insurance details, including recording authorizations. And they can also be collected on our online forms as well, so clients can fill in those details themselves. We have built so in the client's profile, you'll see a list of all of the claims that you have created. So you can create a claim based on the invoice and then submit that to the clearinghouse for payment by the insurers. And also you can view a global list of all clients' claims that you've created in the account to keep track of all of the claims going out. And you can, on a client's invoice, you can choose to record a payment just manually from the client's insurer, so you can differentiate between, whether it was paid by the client or the insurer. And finally, we've just released a daily job that'll process the insurance payments and allocate those to the invoices for those that are involved with our clearinghouse. A lot of exciting stuff there for our US customers. I'm going to hop in and give a demo and just show what the claim creation page looks like and the CMS 1500 form.
And when we say a daily job on this too, for context, that's a daily job that the system will do for you, not one that you have to do.
That's good to clarify.
Yeah, that's right. So we're reducing the work for you, not adding to it. The system, in our internal language, the daily job is an automated process that's going to run and it's going to do something for you. So in this case, it's going to process those insurance payments, pull them back in. It's going to automatically allocate them to the invoices. So it won't turn up on your to-do list.
That's very good to clarify. Okay, let's hop into my screen share here. In between several screens. Let's hop into this one here. Okay, so what we can see here is I'm in a client's profile and I'm looking at their list of claims. So I am just going to jump in and just show you as well the insurance while we're here. And my internet is a little bit slow, so I'm sorry if there is a bit of lag you see here. You'll see in our insurance, in the client's insurance form here, we've expanded this out to capture all of the necessary details that you need for processing those insurance claims. And most of these, there are a few that aren't as required, that most of these fields are going to be on the online form. So when you send a form to a client, they can fill this out and you've got all that data that you need for your claiming. And we've also added in an authorization section, so you can fill in the client's authorization, and these can be linked to an invoice so that you can track the number of sessions that they've used on that authorization. And so that all ties into the claiming. So once you create a claim for an invoice, I'll hop in and show you an example, but you will see this page here. Now, this actually pulls in all of that client's information and the insurer's information to populate what you would see on the claim form. So there's quite a lot of fields here. As I said, it'll populate based on the information you've recorded, but you can go through and choose to edit some of this information as well, specific to the claim. And you can then choose to just save it within the system. You can submit it if you have enrolled with our clearinghouse for claiming, or you can create this CMS 1500 form. So this will actually produce an editable PDF, so you can continue editing that on the CMS 1500 form, or you can just choose to then edit it in the system, create the form, and then send that off to the insurers. So a lot of functionality here, and yeah, all very useful for our US customers.
Absolutely, and that means that CMS 1500 means even if you're not enrolled with the clearinghouse, you can there's still benefit. You can still generate those CMS 1500 forms that are required. So it sort of gives benefit there either way. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Again, very fresh off the off the press. That we'll have some more information too. We decided not to go into too much detail because we had a lot to cover in this presentation, but also from our US based team, they'll actually be doing some more videos and information about how the US sort of claiming works. So there will be more information available, but we wanted to cover it on this because it's part of all the things we've been releasing. Now, while we're still on US insurance claiming, can you tell us about the Superbill Automation?
Yes, I can. So for our US customers, they have the option now so this is under settings, configuration, invoicing. They will see this section here that we see on the screen to set up Superbill Automation. So what this tool does is you can choose to turn it on and choose the days of the following month in which we will automatically create a Superbill for your clients. So on this example, I've set up 20 days on the following month. So what that means is on the 20th day of this month, it will automatically create a super bill for all of your clients for the previous month, for the full previous month. So it'll run through, it'll create those super bills automatically for all of your clients. And you can also then choose to automatically email off those super bills. So if you've turned that on, you can choose a default template to be used. And we've built in a new merge field called the Superbill PDF link. If you put that merge field in your email, it'll actually send off a link that clients can click on to then download their Superbill as a PDF. And yeah, so you can choose to either enable this for all of your clients, or you can leave it off. So the last toggle there, if you don't turn that on, it means you can selectively go into a client profile and turn this on just for those who need it.
Very good. Thank you. And you'll only see this if you're in the US, if you've got a US account. If you're in other regions, you won't see this, so you won't get confused by things popping up in your account that you don't need. So you don't need to worry about it. No, that's wonderful, and that will be very helpful for our growing US user base who have been asking for that. So, okay, back to automatic statement generation, emailing. Now this applies globally, right?
This one's for everyone. So everyone will see this in their account. And again, this is in that same page we're just looking at. So settings, configuration, invoicing, we will see this statement settings section here. So basically everything I just said for the Superbill applies here. It's the exact same operation, but we're creating a statement in this instance. So yeah, if we've turned it on, again, you choose the day of the following month that we create the statement. That'll be for the previous month, and you can choose to email that out. Selectively turn that on for the clients you wish to generate it for.
And this is one of the things I think about operating, globally and meeting the needs of the different markets, is that often ideas and things will come from one market. Like, so this, as you can see, the similarity between this and the Superbill, right? So essentially, the Superbill was something that was required in the sort of US market. We had strong, but that also overlapped with this sort of automatic statement generation that people were interested in other markets as well. So you can sort of see that we've got those overlapping things, and often we get that kind of cross-pollination of ideas that are really good and work well. We actually get exposure to that because of that global presence, and we can say, we can, some things, as we just saw, we'll release for one region that's specific to that region. But where there is, universal benefit, we're like, we can also repurpose that for something that's going to be a benefit across the board. So that's really good. That also plays out, incidentally, in our privacy and our security requirements as well, that sometimes you'll find particular regions will be ahead of the curve in terms of their regulation and their awareness of certain risks. And because we operate in those different markets, we have to be compliant with the different regulations in each market. So it essentially means we get raised always to the strictest standard globally, because we apply the same standard around the world. So again, it's another benefit of that, where we work across multiple markets. We actually get the best of each of those markets through to customers, which is really awesome. It's, to be honest, not something I thought about initially as we were sort of expanding, but it then became really apparent as we were doing it about what benefit there is across those different regions. Very good. Okay, let's jump into invoice due dates. That this is a new function that is out. Take us through this.
Yeah, so invoice due dates allow you to selectively, you can choose to use this or you can choose to not use it. But if you enable it, you can choose the default days after you've created, after the invoice date, I should say, that it's considered due. So once we have set this up, we can set a default date that applies to all invoices we create thereafter. And once it has been set up, you'll see a screenshot in the bottom left here. We've got an invoice due date that populates for us automatically on the invoice. And then as you see on the right, we can see that it actually also populates on the invoice printout, or the PDF that you send to your clients. So a lot of people were communicating the due period or the due terms in the invoice footer, which you can still continue to do, but you may choose to now use this invoice due date setting so that it populates for you automatically on the invoice to communicate that expectation with clients.
Yeah.
And you can edit this one per invoice as well. So if you do have one that you want to extend the terms for, you can do that, or you can take off the invoice due date completely. And if you don't have an invoice due date set on the invoice, it won't populate on that printout of the invoice as well.
Yeah, it will actually remove the whole line, won't it? It will just, it will just say the date the way it always has up to now. So if you want to use it, great. If not, it won't change the behavior of your invoicing.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, next one, Stripe multi-merchant function. We've had a very busy 6 months, haven't we, this last
We have.
and in fact, yeah, they do. And we haven't actually covered, like, in today's presentation, we're not actually going to cover everything. Like, so this is like the key thing. So awesome. Okay, multi-merchant function. How does this work?
All right, so previously with our Stripe integration, you had the option to set up a Stripe account that's connected as what we would call like the business default Stripe account. So there was just one account that would be used for processing payments and saving the credit card details in that single Stripe account. We did have an emerging need, though, to have the option to link a Stripe account per practitioner rather than just to the business itself. So that's what we built. So what you're looking at here is when we're in a practitioner's profile, you have the option to link a Stripe account to that practitioner themselves. So you can link an account to all of the practitioners in your account, for example, or just some, and you can also still have a single business default Stripe account, which it can be used as a backup, or you can choose to use that in certain contexts. So this one, we have also built a use permission for, because they are linking to, their Stripe account. So you can choose to enable this, or you can choose to not enable it. So if you haven't enabled this new permission, which is connect to own Stripe account, the user that has access to their practitioner profile won't see this online payments option. So they won't see the option to connect to Stripe or disconnect their own practitioner profile. If they have, though, they will have that option, and it means that you don't need an administrator to come in and link their Stripe account if you do want to set that up. And so once this has been connected, if we have some logic there to sort of default, if the invoice is associated to this practitioner, we check if there's a Stripe account linked to them. If not, we fall back to the business default. But in the app, if you're processing a payment, you will have the option to choose a different account to process the payment for. But just something really important to note if you do decide to use this is that the way that Stripe does collect these credit card details is that the card details of the client are connected to that single Stripe account. So if you collect the card details for a practitioner, the client's card details will only be able to be used for that practitioner's Stripe account. So you would need to record them for each different Stripe account you're processing payments for. As much as we wish it could allow you to copy them across, unfortunately, it's just not possible. So yeah. I just wanted to mention that is a limitation with our Stripe integration.
Yeah, and I think just for the context around that, it's a international legal requirement there around the way in which, as you can imagine, it's highly regulated how credit cards are managed, yeah. And it makes kind of sense, right, that you can't have if a client authorized your credit card details to be stored with one practitioner, essentially like one business entity, for another business entity to automatically be able to have access to that. So that the way this operates is it's outside of something that we can directly kind of influence. It's actually it's designed by that as I say, international regulations around the management of credit cards. And as people may or may not know, but like as credit cards stored in Stripe, like part of the compliance around that, it doesn't store we don't store the card details in the Powered RE system directly. It actually, even though our encryption and everything is encrypted to a standard that theoretically, it's managed in a secure way. Again, the regulations, there's strict regulations around the storage of credit cards, and they need to be stored with like an institution or with that actually is accredited to store those cards. So, think your banks, your credit card companies, so forth. So we store like a token, that allows us to sort of recognize which client is linked to the account in Stripe. So we can sort of say to Stripe, hey, we're processing a credit card payment for this person. It looks to that account with the little code we've got and says, okay, these are the details, or it processes it and gives us this information back. But we don't actually get access to those credit card numbers. So it's not like we can go, hey, we're just going to open up and allow these accounts or these Stripe accounts to share credit card details. It is managed that way. Now, as much as it's annoying, it is sort of how it should be too. Like it makes sense at a broader level. It's annoying for us that we get that. Ideally we would do it differently, but there is good reason why it is done like that. Now, the other quick thing on this, why people might want to use this. So often people have different employment and contract arrangements. One of the catalysts for this use case is that in Australia there's some rules around, depending on where a payment goes, influences whether someone is considered sometimes a contractor or an employee, and it gets a little messy if or it can get messy if the payments all going into the one Stripe account or the one bank account that's owned by the practice. So if that rings a bell for you and you want to get some advice from your accountant or from your solicitor or your attorney around that, but that's one of the reasons. So this allows you to say, hey, we're going to get the payment, the practitioner's payment's going to go into the practitioner's account, the practice itself isn't touching it, and that often helps clarify the relationship as a contractor rather than an employee. Not that we can give legal advice or accounting advice or anything else, but just for context, one of the reasons that this was requested and why we built it. Okay, let's jump into SMS subscription. So this is a slightly new, we've changed the way this operates.
Yeah, that's right. So what we have built here is taking more control of allowing you to see when clients have unsubscribed from receiving SMS. So this functionality allows you to now see in the client's admin manage page of their profile whether they have unsubscribed. Now, there are two keywords that will trigger the unsubscription. So if a client texts back to you with the keyword stop or unsubscribe, just as a single word on its own. So if stop is part of a sentence, they won't be unsubscribed. But if they do come back and respond with one of those, the system will automatically unsubscribe them. And what that means is that they will receive an automated message that we can see in the center of the screen here to alert the customer that they have been unsubscribed. And we also just recommend that they contact you guys or the practice if that happened accidentally so that they can continue to receive SMS. Now, if that does happen, you can hop into this admin manage page in their profile and you can change the received SMS status back to subscribed. So just should only do this if they have given you verbal consent to resubscribe, but that'll mean that they can receive SMS from you going forward. Now, if they have unsubscribed, you will see messages in the system when you try and send them an SMS that they're unsubscribed. So we're not going to allow you to send them SMS if they have indicated that they don't want to receive them.
Yeah. And again, before some people might say, oh, well, I don't want to have that. I don't, if someone replies stop or unsubscribe, I don't want them to be unsubscribed. It's a legal requirement. So, part of it is that if you send messages as a business, then there needs to be a unsubscription option. These terms, unsubscribe, stop, etc. Again, set well above our heads. This is the communication authorities and whatnot that set these requirements. This functionality used to still happen, right? Like, so if people replied, stop or whatnot, but it wasn't visible enough, like to our customers, the practices that someone had, and so then they could not be getting correspondence, and it wasn't as clear. So this makes it far more visible what's happening, and allows you control to reset it, turn it back on, and then the rest of it. So again, it's a compliance requirement, and it actually hasn't changed. It's just now visible, available to you. You can control it and see how it operates. Okay, we've got a few UI updates to talk about, and then we'll tease a couple of coming features and we'll wrap it up. So UI updates, what are we seeing here?
All right, I think since our last webinar on product updates, we've released a few more UI updates. So that includes just briefly the appointment panel UI update, UX update, our right-click menu. When you right-click on an appointment, we've updated the styling of that, as well as when you hover over the appointment. The quick search, so we see that in the Powder header, that has got a new design. And then we have some ongoing updates that are still in progress. And we've got a little example here on the screen of what this will look like, but we're looking at a much cleaner look here. So we've just to point out some changes, the secondary menu. So it's not the far left menu, but the one in the middle. So second left, this one's got a little design change. We can see we've gone with more neutral coloring here and taken away that dark header. Also, just when you're hovering or clicking on that those menu items, we've got some color changes there that are a bit more neutral. As well as on the actual page content itself, we've updated the header styling here. We've got a link to quick tips in the top right-hand corner, which will take you to a knowledge base article or give you some information on the page. And then just some general sort of updates to the page design that just improve usability. So these will be going out we're still working on some of these now, but they will be going out gradually. Just to mention, we can't cover all of the changes in one go, and it's always good to get stuff out and get feedback on it as well. Like, there may be usability things we need to tweak. So you may notice some pages start to look like this and others don't, but this is sort of the end goal for all of our pages, to have this new updated design. And I did miss one really key one, which is down the bottom of the page. We are going to fix the footer there with the save button. So that one's really awesome because it means that you'll always see the option to save or other buttons down the bottom of the screen. So So
when we say fix, what we mean is it will stay in the same location, right? So it will keep it like static there, and so as you're scrolling through the page, you're still going to have that, which means you don't have to like make a change and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the page to find the save button, which people told us was annoying them. So we hopefully it was annoying people. Understand, we get it, we hear you, and so this should make that easier. Okay, very good, thank you. Now a couple of upcoming updates. What do we have in the pipeline not too far away?
All right, so we are continuing to work on our user permissions, and we've got a really a very big one that we have a lot of demand for in terms of client access. So this one will dictate whether a user can access all clients or just those that are assigned to them. As we looked at, that includes the primary practitioner or assigned practitioners. If this one isn't granted, so they can only see their own clients, they won't see client names of any other clients that are in that account. So that's going to be a big change, and getting that out soon to all of you. The next one is our practice dashboard, which is a really exciting feature we've been working on, and we'll be releasing that soon. So this one is just going to compile and give you a dashboard of your business statistics, which will be really awesome to get that out and give you a preview of that. And last one, do you want to hop onto that, Damien?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some AI features in the pipeline. I won't go into too much detail about that right now, other than to say we've got some exciting things coming out. We, naturally, because we love technology, we're really excited about AI and the possibilities that it brings. Naturally, because of the nature of the information that we work with, we are being super careful. We're running a lot of this now through our compliance and departments, and making sure that because it's such an evolving, emerging sort of technology, we need to make sure we get everything right. But we are very excited about what we can do with AI, and so that will be coming out as well. We'll start with some initial features, and we'll develop it as we go. So we'll have more to say on that soon, but just wanted to flag something we're excited about, and is on the roadmap and coming soon. We also have a bunch more stuff, but we're not going to. We won't go through all that now, because we've spoken for nearly an hour, Claire. So we've had so much stuff to cover today, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But we will wrap it up there. So thank you very much, Claire, for taking us through that. Wonderful to have you on again. And to everyone, if there's anything we can do to help, you can contact us via support. Click on to start a live chat in the account. Jump onto our website, book a support call. Jump onto our roadmap, and you can see some of these things. We don't put everything on the roadmap instantly. We put some key sort of things on. Some of the smaller things we don't put on there. We get them out there and release it. But you can have a look and see what is coming. So once again, thank you very much, and we will see you in the next time.
Yes. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.